Hello everyone, my name is Lauren. I hope this video finds you well. At the time of recording this, I am actually less than 48 hours away from moving out of this apartment. I've only lived here for a year and it both feels like the longest time ever, and also it went by so quickly. So it's kind of crazy to think about the fact that in less than 2 days I will be out of here forever. But I am very excited for that for reasons that I will get into later. So I've been packing a lot recently, disassembling furniture, all that type of stuff. And last year, when I moved out of my last apartment, I did a video kind of recapping what it was like living there, the pros and cons of living in that apartment, the things that I was gonna miss, the things that I was definitely excited to get away from when I moved. And so I figured to put a nice little bow on this chapter of my life, I would do that again this year when I move out of this apartment. So that's what I want to do today. Mostly just talk about the pros and cons of what has been like living here. So to get right into it, let's start with the pros of living here. The first thing that really attracted me to this apartment and the reason why I signed the lease to live here in the first place was the size of the apartment. Because this apartment is, I think, almost 800 square feet for a one-bedroom apartment, which in Montreal is pretty big, especially for the average one-bedroom apartment here. So I felt pretty lucky finding this place. Also, I will let you know the price that I pay for this one-bedroom apartment. For the last year, I've been paying $1,650 a month, and I have been living alone, so it is fully me paying that every month. No help from anybody else. I just wanted to be transparent about the price of this apartment. Considering the price of the apartment, I found the size to be really good. If you want to see better videos showing the size of the rooms in this apartment, feel free to check out my apartment tour that I posted very quickly after moving in here. And if you've already seen that video, you'll know what I'm talking about, how big this bedroom is and how big the living room is. And so that was one of the big things that really attracted me to living here. And during the time that I have lived here, it has been nice. I mean, I do feel like I prefer having an apartment that is too big than one that is too small. So that has been nice. The next pro of living here has been the location. This apartment is pretty close to downtown. I think it takes me about 15 or 20 minutes to walk to the center of downtown Montreal. It's a pretty good location for that. I mean, initially when I was looking at apartments, I wanted to live closer downtown, really be in it, but I found that I couldn't afford the one-bedroom apartments that were available in those areas, so this was the next best thing. But over the time that I have lived in this apartment, I have been grateful for how close it is to downtown. Next thing I like about living here has been the high floor that I live on. This unit is on the 9th floor of a 22-floor building, so it is pretty high up. And it's also surrounded by other high rises in this area. And due to the high floor that I live on, it means that I don't really hear any noise from the outside. Or if I do, it is definitely very minimal compared to my last apartment where I lived on the 2nd floor on a much busier street than where I live now. So that has been really nice, escaping all of that outdoor traffic noise, not having to deal with that anymore. Of course, I still hear the occasional siren from an ambulance, but of course that's to be expected. The next thing I've liked about living here has been the elevators. This building has 4 elevators, and most of the time they're all working. Not always true though, but that's besides the point right now. And having an elevator, especially when you live on a higher floor, has been very nice, not having to walk up all those steps. You come home, you just get an elevator and it takes you right to where you need to go. So that has been a nice part of living here. And the next and final thing that has been nice about living in this building and this apartment has been the building amenities. So this building does have both a pool and a gym. The pool is outdoors and the gym is in the building. It's just in the basement. So not having to pay extra for a gym membership has been nice. Yes, it's not the most well-equipped gym, but it has enough for me. It has dumbbells, it has a few pieces of equipment, it has a cardio room, it has a yoga room. So it's good enough for me, to be honest. Again, like I said, it has been nice saving that little bit of money on a gym membership every month, where instead I can just go down to the basement of my own building and work out. Especially in the winter, so I don't have to go outside and head to the gym. I can just stay inside where it's warm and then work out from, within my same building. And then of course in the summer, having a pool is very nice on those very hot heat wave days. And then, inviting people over and going out to the pool has been nice as well. But I will get into that more later because I experienced a lot of complications related to the pool. But yeah, just the principle of having it has been an advantage. So now, after stating all of the pros of living here, I am now going to get into the cons, the disadvantages, the things that I didn't like about living here. And the list is quite long, unfortunately, so let's just get into it. Also, a lot of these points will kind of be expanding on some of the things that I said in the pros section where something might be both a pro and a con at the same time. And this first pro is a good example of that. So yes, the apartment is big and that has been nice, but also the con of that is I find it to be too big. I'm not someone who owns a lot of stuff. I don't own a lot of furniture. And I kind of found myself feeling like I needed to fill the space out more than I did, especially when I first moved in here. Because I just brought the furniture from my last apartment here and then tried to make it work in a different space. And then I found that was much harder to do because this apartment was at least quite a bit bigger than my last apartment. So the furniture just didn't fit the same as it did there. And I kind of found myself over time starting to dislike how big my apartment was. And I know that is very much a first world champagne problem. And obviously, like I said, I am grateful for having a big apartment. I'd rather have a too big of an apartment than too small of an apartment. But for me, I just don't have the stuff to fill out the space properly. And I just found that it kind of grew to feel very empty at times. The next thing I didn't like about here is, yes, while the location is close to downtown, it is very far away from pretty much everyone that I care about who lives in the city. I am very far away from all of my friends right now. And yes, while I live near downtown, I am kind of living in an isolated part of downtown. I don't technically feel the hustle and bustle of the city that I kind of was hoping for when I moved here. So it definitely feels more isolated, more quiet, and I really don't like that. I'd rather live in a bustling neighborhood on a more busy street like I used to live in my old apartment. And then again, like I said, my friends are so far away, it takes me at least 30 minutes by metro to get to the area where all of my friends live. So pretty much anytime I want to see anybody, unless I get them to come all the way out here to come see me, most of the time when I'm hanging out with friends, I am going to their area. For example, if it's a group hangout, if there's 5 of us, let's say, and they all live in a different part of town, and I'm the only one who lives here, then it makes more sense for me to be the one to travel to them than for all 4 of them to try to travel to me. So it just kind of led to me having to go out and taking long metro rides and long bus rides to go see my friends, which I would rather have more of a built-in interaction with my friends and have it be easier with lower barriers to entry than what I do now, which is having to take at least a 30-minute metro just to go hang out with a friend. Next thing I don't like about living here is the laundry situation. If you saw my apartment tour for my last apartment, I lived in a unit that had in-unit laundry for free because my landlord was paying the hydro bill. So she paid for the water and the electricity, so it wasn't my problem in any way. And I definitely feel like I've been spoiled by that because when I moved in here, there is no laundry in my unit. And also the laundry that is available is coin operated, which means that you actually have to pay to do your laundry, which is something that I swore to myself I would never go back to because my first ever apartment that I lived in outside of my parents' house had coin operated laundry and I hated it so freaking much that I told myself I would never go back to it. And then with this apartment, it was the best of the options that I had when I was touring last summer. So I just ended up biting the bullet and dealing with it. But seriously, for the last year, it has been such a nuisance. I've really hated having to pay for laundry, just on the principle of it. Laundry is a basic need. Having clean clothes is a basic need. So the fact that I have to pay for it is stupid to me. And I was paying on average about $30 a month to do my laundry. And that's being very conservative. To be honest, there were some times where I would not wash clothes that kind of needed to be washed because I needed to prioritize what was most dirty. It was just such a frustrating thing. Also, with the machines being coin operated and not in my unit, they are communal. So that means I have to share them with other people on my floor. I know that a lot of big buildings have laundry only on one floor of the entire building, so the entire building is sharing a few machines altogether. So the pro of this situation is it's not as bad as that, Basically, every floor in my building has one washer and one dryer on each floor. So all 22 floors have one washer and one dryer. So if someone is using the machines on your floor, you can always just climb a flight of stairs or descend a flight of stairs to do your laundry on a different floor, which I did quite often. So at least there was that. I wasn't sharing with the entire building per se, but it was still frustrating having to try to time your laundry around when other people were doing theirs. And then again, just the process of having to pay for laundry to begin with just makes me so angry. And every time I redo laundry, pretty much the entire past year, it would make me frustrated. The next thing that I didn't like about living here, and this is probably the biggest reason that contributed to me not renewing my lease, is noises of construction. So this building, like I said, is 22 floors. The building was built in 1965, so the building is old. Because of that, it needs a lot of renovations. And because there are so many units in this building and lots of them need renovations, I dealt with an insane amount of construction noise during the time that I lived here. So I moved in September of 2024. Almost immediately in November of 2024, I started hearing construction noises because they were doing renovations on the floors above and below me. So I was hearing noise coming from every direction, and I was working from home most of the time. So it's very hard to get work done and to take work calls when you're dealing with construction noise pretty much during your entire workday, because the workers are scheduled to start at 8 a.m. and to end between 4 and 5 p.m. So many times I was woken up to the sound of construction in the mornings, or I would have phone appointments or meetings with team members, and they would be interrupted by construction noise. And there was pretty much nothing I could do about it, and it drove me absolutely up the wall insane. So as I said, the construction noise started in November 2024, and it didn't really end until June of 2025. Definitely most concentrated between November and February when I lived here. And then after that, it kind of got a bit better. But again, it didn't really officially end until June. I mean, technically, I was woken up the other day by construction noise. Mind you, like I said, I am moving out in less than 2 days. So pretty much from the beginning of my lease to the very bitter end of my lease here, I've been dealing with construction noise. And construction noise is just so much different than street noise, I've learned. One of the reasons why I wanted to move out from my last apartment was because of the noise from the street and traffic noise. But to be honest, that doesn't shine a light in comparison to the noise that I dealt with living here. I've really learned about myself that construction noise to me is so much worse than street noise, and I would so much rather deal with that than to deal with what I've dealt with living in this apartment here. The next thing, mind you, we're barely halfway through this list, so I've still got quite a few points to go, but the next one is there was a more than normal number of power/water outages in the year that I lived here. There's a period of time where we went 5 days with no hot water, and there are also tons of random power outages that would happen. So, again, you're in the middle of working from home and then all of a sudden all the power cuts, you lose your internet, can't work. Or you'd be in the middle of taking a shower and then the hot water would just completely disappear. So stuff like that happened way more frequently than it should, to be honest. But part of that I do think is because the age of the building and how old it is. But it was just so frustrating how many times it happened in the year that I lived here. Luckily, for the example related to the 5 days of no hot water, I was actually away during that period of time. So I only found out that we had no hot water for 5 days on the day that I returned. Because I guess sometime while I was gone, the hot water was shut off for whatever reason, and there was no email sent out to residents to say that that had happened. But then when I returned, pretty much the day I got back, I got an email from management sent out to all residents, basically saying, yeah, after 5 days of no hot water, we've now reinstated it, so your hot water should be working again in the next few hours. And I remember being really confused because I was thinking I never got an email saying that it was shut off in the first place. And I just got really lucky in that I happened to be away during the time that it was gone. But if I had been here during that, oh my God, I would have lost my shit. I would have been so annoyed. I'm lucky I avoided the worst of that, to be honest, but there were definitely other times where we had no hot water, and yes, it did affect me. It affects the way you take showers and wash dishes and all sorts of stuff. So that was definitely very annoying to deal with. The next two grievances I have are with the gym and with the pool. So let's start with the gym. As I said, I had a gym in the building, so yes, I did save money by not having to go to a public gym every day, paying the monthly membership fee. But the gym just was not well cared for. I will put some pictures up to show some examples of how the gym was not well cared for. There were holes in the walls, like literally punched in by people and their equipment. There were scuff marks everywhere, dirt on the walls, cobwebs in corners and windows. There were leaves from the outside that blew in when it was windy and the windows were open because the windows really didn't have any screens to protect from anything getting inside. There was dirt on the floor when you were working out a lot of the time. There were bugs and just all that type of stuff that just made it a really hard environment to work out in because it genuinely was just not clean. And I really don't think that there was anyone ever going in and ensuring that the gym was being kept to standard. I did actually submit a repair request with the building recently to have the gym kind of cleaned up and fixed. And over the last few days, they actually have started addressing that request. Ironically, they've only started addressing it right as I am getting ready to leave. So this is not something that I will benefit from. It is something that the other residents will benefit from, hopefully on my behalf of starting that request. Hopefully they actually continue to fix the gym and to make it more of a, welcoming place to work out, more of a clean place to work out. But that has definitely been frustrating. Another aspect of the gym that has been hard is there are residents who go in there and who work out with their music playing out loud. A few specific people that I'm thinking of in particular when I tell you this example. And so I would finish work, I would go downstairs to go to the gym, and the same freaking people would always be there playing their music, blaring out loud, and they'd take up an entire room of the gym, all of the equipment, and it just didn't, I didn't want to argue with them after a certain point. I just would take the equipment that I could get from that room and then I would go to a different room in the gym and close the doors and work out by myself to try to drown out all the music that they would play. Just little stuff like that is frustrating, but as you deal with it for a long period of time, it starts to really weigh on you and it became something that I really disliked about living here. As for the issues with the pool, so the pool was only open for 2 months of the year and it had very limited hours. So the pool was only open between June and August. That's it, which is crazy. Not open in September, not open in May, none of that, which is very limited. I mean, Montreal weather isn't that bad. The pool could definitely be open for longer than it is, but they told me the reason it's not open for longer is because the pool runs on the schedule of the lifeguard, and the lifeguards they hire to survey the pool are high school students. So obviously high school students only have summer between June and the end of August. That was kind of the way that they ran it, I guess, which I definitely disagreed with, but what can you really do? And again, the hours were only from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And it did happen one time where I tried going to the pool with my friends before the hours were supposed to be closed, and the pool was closed early. So that was also very frustrating. Another thing about the pool is it had a guest limit. Obviously, you don't want one resident and their entire family and friends coming to hog up the entire pool. But the guest limit that we had was we were only allowed to bring one outside guest per week, which was absolutely stupid. And realistically, it wasn't something that was enforced, but it was just so frustrating to hear. Again, that definitely stopped me from visiting the pool more than I did during my time living here. The next major con of living here were the doormen of my building. So basically in my building, there are doormen who basically just survey who comes in and out and handles packages and handles like general type of questions from residents, right? Opens doors for people, that type of stuff. So we have had a number of rotating doormen who all work shift work, and some of them I kind of got to know. And there were two people in particular that I want to talk about here. So the first one of the doormen was an older white guy, and he was a conspiracy theorist. He actively spreads conspiracy theories to residents in the building. So that's just completely not okay, and it's unprofessional, and it's weird. And, it's making residents uncomfortable. So that was my issue with one of the doormen. Another issue I had with a different doorman was this other doorman would make sexual creepy comments at me where every so often he would make comments about the way that I looked or the way that I was dressed. Again, this is a different doorman who is also an older white guy. So, just the type to act like this and, just be super weird to me. And, when this is my home, I'm supposed to be comfortable here. I'm supposed to feel at ease. And then this is the type of behavior I'm getting from a worker who's supposed to be protecting us, the line of defense to stop random people from coming into the building. And this is how they're treating the residents, at least me. It's very concerning and disheartening. And that also is one of the biggest reasons as to why I wanted to move out of here. The final con that I have of living in this apartment, finally, after this big long list of cons, is a small one, but it's added up a lot over the time that I have lived here. Basically, my building is located a bit on a slant. It's kind of on a hill. And because of that, in order to get home every day from going literally anywhere, going to the grocery store, going to see friends, if I ever have to go to work in person, I have to climb back up this damn hill every single time I want to just get home. That's tiring, it's exhausting. And one of the things I told myself when I was signing the lease to move in here was, it'll be good exercise. In the dead of winter, when it's icy, when it's cold, when you want nothing more than to just already be home, and then you have to climb this damn hill, it really wore on me over time. And it got exhausting. And don't even mention having to try to come home while you're carrying bags of groceries. It honestly was very, very annoying to me. It sounds like a small thing, but to be honest, it became a big thing for me, and it became one of the things that I actively resented about living here. So after all of that is said and done, those are all of my pros, all of my cons of living in this apartment. And as I said, I'll be moving out in less than 2 days to a completely new place in a completely new area in a much different situation. So I'm definitely very much looking forward to that, looking forward to the shift in that, the new chapter, and just starting again. Some things you can look forward to in the future from me are I will be making an apartment hunting video. So I toured many apartments when I was looking for the apartment that I'm currently moving to very soon. And so I will be posting a video describing all of the apartments that I toured, including prices and all of the pros and cons related to each one that I saw. So look forward to that video coming from me in the upcoming weeks. Also, another video you can most likely look forward to from me is another apartment tour. I will most likely be doing another apartment tour when I move into my new place, but that will probably take a little bit longer because I will need more time to decorate and set everything up. But once that's done, maybe in the coming months, I will make another apartment tour for my brand new place, which I am very excited for. So that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, especially for me ranting about all the things that I have disliked very strongly about living in this apartment. If you've experienced any of the cons, especially, that I've experienced living in this apartment, wherever you have lived in the past or where you live now, feel free to let me know in the comments. I love listening to stories and stuff like that, so feel free to let me know. And I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening, night, whatever time it is for you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!